Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time again. Look at your watches. It is 8 o'clock on a Monday night. Soon, hopefully, there'll be football at 8 o'clock on a Monday night. But tonight, it's fantasy football. And you're with the Fantasy Football Buzz podcast with Cyclops, yours truly, the commish, both from North Carolina. Hopefully, 2020 will be joining us soon from beautiful South Florida. But for right now, it's Cyclops and the commish, as the banner says, or the banner did say. And tonight, we're, for the most part, going to jump right in to the NFC West. Of course, we'll have our trivia question tonight. I made it a little easier there, Cyclops.
Oh. So
if you
even
want hard ones, I give you hard ones. You want easy ones, I give you easy ones.
Even I might get it, you mean?
So it's somewhere in the middle. It's somewhere in the middle. So tonight, what I'm excited about NFC West, only because I think we have some seriously overrated players in that division. And I think we also have some sleepers. We have some people that I think are actually undervalued right now. And as much as I would like to keep it to myself, I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to let everybody who's listening know how, where I stand on some of these players. Brad, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you. We're just prepping for this little storm that's coming by. It shouldn't be too bad, especially for South Florida people who are used to it their whole life. But yes, we're going through the NFC West. It's an interesting division. There's a lot of players, and as you said, there's some undervalue, there's some overvalue, and there's just players in there you think, oh, when you start looking through it and doing the studying, there should be people that you think, oh, that person should be higher, and they're rated, 6th, 7th round, and you're like, why? Right. And you start going through it, right? It's very interesting. So I say let's jump right into it and
let's jump in, but also, if anybody would like to give us their input, there are several ways that you can do that. First of all, if you're watching it via live on Facebook or through YouTube, you can make comments right below, and those comments will come to us. We'll be able to see them. We'll talk about them on the show. You can also call us at 772-800-BUZZ, which is also 2899. Give us a call. We'll get you on. Tell us how you feel. Tell us what you want. Tell us what fantasy football is all about to you and what you're looking forward to in this season. And you can also call in and tell us how bad Brad's analysis is on certain players in the NFC West that I'm already anticipating.
We'll see.
We're going to write things down tonight. And what we'll do is, after we're done talking about the quarterbacks in the NFC West, we'll throw in our trivia question. And at that point, we'll give people some time to think about it and answer it. But Brad, you're right. I think it's time to jump right in. Let's go ahead and talk about the quarterbacks in the NFC West. Who's the class of the quarterbacks in the NFC West? Is it Kyler Murray or is it Russell Wilson?
It's a great question. It seems like a year or two ago would have been Goff. And between these two, Wilson and Murray, I think Wilson, you kind of know what you're getting. And what you're getting is really good games pretty much every week. You know that. Murray, with the addition of Hopkins and having Fitzgerald there and Christian Kirk and Drake, who came on at the end of last year, I think he jumps ahead of Wilson a spot or two at just on the upside and on the potential.
Write it down. No, I mean, it's not just you. A lot of people have him. His ADP right now, they have him at QB5.
Right.
An ADP of around 55, which means you're getting him in the 6th round. But the question really is, and I don't know where you have him, Brad, if you have him at a QB5, but is that – you probably have him at a QB4.
No, I have like around 5.
Okay. So the question is he overrated? Are people excited because of Hopkins, because of what Kenyon Drake did at the end of last year? For me, I think the answer is yes. I think right now he is a little overrated. And when I say overrated, I don't mean that he's bad. I like Kyler Murray. I think he's a great talent. The question is he really worth spending a 5th or 6th round on a player on, at that spot? Right. Because here's the thing I'm concerned about. He was good last year, right? I mean, we all got excited about Kyler Murray. He still finished as QB 12 in points per game.
Right.
He is not, forget top 5, he's not top 10. At least he wasn't last year.
And he didn't have Hopkins last year.
He didn't have the tools. He didn't have the weapons. I understand that. But a lot of the points that he made were on his running. But but most likely we're not going to get that.
You know, he only had 544 yards rushing.
That's a lot when you break it down per game and you add it to how many rushing touchdowns did he have? I don't have that.
4. He had 4.
Okay.
All right. He had 20 passing. He had 3,700 yards.
Right.
And good receivers. I wouldn't say great receivers. Fitzgerald's a great receiver, but he's at the tail end of his career.
Correct. No, I understand that. But I like the offense. I like the coach. I like the quarterback. I'm just concerned. I think COVID is going to make a difference here. Whether or not
COVID's going to make a difference everywhere.
It is, but I'm talking about the chemistry that you're hoping to see between Kyler Murray and Nuck. I don't know if you're going to see the kind of chemistry early. I think eventually you'll see it. I'm just saying, look, if you have a 5th round draft pick and there's a good running back or a top or a wide receiver 1 or 2, I'm going for that. I'm going to wait a little bit on the quarterback because right now people are putting Kyler Murray a little further ahead than where I think he should be at this point.
I think when you're talking about Murray, and it's, this obviously is a great player to spend some time on. You're talking, as I said, you're talking about that potential. I mean, they have him slated for around 4,200 yards this year, a few more touchdowns, around 25. And if he still gets his 4 rushing touchdowns, he's in that 30 touchdown range. But the potential, I think, is that much higher. When you're talking,
there is potential. Are you spending a 5th or 6th round draft pick on that potential? That's my question.
There's a lot of quarterbacks out there. I think he's just kind of one of these feel players. If you are high on him, I think he would be that player to jump up and get in one of those rounds, 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, when you're going for your first quarterback.
Right.
I do. I think he has that, that little bit of an edge for an upside.
Okay. So then you want to talk about Russell Wilson then, because in a lot of drafts, a lot of ADPs, they have Russell Wilson ahead of Kyler Murray. They have him, let's say, as a QB5, where Murray would be a 6, for example. I know you had it the other way around.
Yeah, it's right in that range.
And I don't disagree, but I also wouldn't disagree if somebody said, I'm going to put Murray ahead of Russell Wilson. What's your take on Wilson before I go off on him?
For what reason? Wilson, you know what you're getting. Like I said, you know what you're getting. Last year, you had 4,100 yards, 31 touchdowns, had, almost 350 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. You're going to get that same range. That's about what you're going to get from him. Give or take a couple hundred yards passing, a couple touchdowns one way or the other. That's what you're going to get.
But aren't you going to get that later?
And that's not. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, he puts up good numbers. But when you're talking about taking your first quarterback, do you want to take that person that maybe is going to do around that and give you the upside, or be safe?
Yeah, but what about the Matt Ryans and the Drew Breeses and the Matt Staffords and the Aaron Rodgers? I mean,
they're all going to be in that range.
Well, right now, Russell Wilson is way ahead of those in ADP. And I think if somebody is going to jump up and grab him in the 5th or 6th round, they're making a big mistake, because you can wait 8th or 9th round. You can get Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, Matthew Stafford, Tom Brady. I mean, there are guys that are going to get you his stats.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me tell you this about Russell Wilson. And I agree with you, Brad, on the consistency. But let me tell you a few things that Russell Wilson did not do after week 9 of last year.
Okay.
He didn't get over 20 fantasy points in a single game. He didn't throw for more than 2 touchdowns in a single game. He didn't throw for over 270 yards in a single game, and he didn't rush for over 30 yards in a single game. He didn't finish as a top 6 fantasy quarterback. Yet people are placing him right now as a top fantasy quarterback. And this is a team that's going to concentrate on the run. We'll talk about that later when we get into information about Carson and Hyde and Penny. But they're going to continue to concentrate on the run. As far as I'm concerned, wait on Russell Wilson. If you grab him, it's because you're a Seattle fan. But I'm telling you, the right thing to do for fantasy, yes, if you can grab him in the 8th round, I have no problem with that. But if you think you're going to grab him in the 5th or 6th round, you're reaching.
Right. So that's yes. And I agree. And Murray, he's going to be that like upside. And Wilson, if you get him in the 8th or 9th round, you're happy. Yeah, he's nice. He's going to be good. And see how the season goes. So where does that put Goff and Garoppolo? Goff, right? He had 4,600 yards last year. He had 22 touchdowns. He doesn't run. He'll get a rushing touchdown here or there. It seemed like he was going to have this blowout year last year, and it just never seemed to materialize, even though he did have 4,600 yards, but it just never felt consistent.
Yeah, and a lot of it was the last 5 games of the season.
Right.
He had 11 touchdowns, a 5.1% TD rate at the end of the season, starting the last 5 games. But he had 11 touchdowns up and through the first 12 weeks.
Right, and then he had 11. Right.
For consistency, you're not getting him. I'm picking him as a QB 19 or 20. I'm not grabbing him until real late in the draft, maybe as a backup in case one of my starters gets hurt.
Right.
Garoppolo, I'm not even drafting this year. I'm not recommending anybody draft this year. With
I mean, they did just sign Jordan Reed.
Yes, I understand because Kittle's not good enough.
So he moves from 20 to 19.
Yeah. So maybe later on, once if Deebo Samuel's going to come back from his broken foot, if Brandon Ayuk turns out to be this golden child, I can probably come back in and stream Garoppolo on a weekly basis, but I'm not drafting him unless I have to.
Yeah, I mean, he had 27 touchdowns last year. It's not like he didn't throw touchdowns. I get it. There's 15 other quarterbacks I would take before him. Yeah. He's a streaming quarterback. Just don't go near him unless you absolutely have to. If you have a 16-team league, maybe you got to take him as a backup quarterback. Right. Other than that, we agree, stay away.
Right.
All right. So let's throw out the trivia question. That's okay. And also, again, let people know if they want to give a call. They can give us a call at 772-800-2899. And we'll get you on the show. You can also put comments in, and we're happy to respond. We're watching those. And yes, we were talking about Russell Wilson. Sorry, and yes, he was good minor league third baseman, but he's not allowed to play baseball anymore. Even though he'd probably rather be doing that now, maybe.
Okay, here's a trivia question. In the Super Bowl era, who are the only 4 players who have reached 300 receiving yards in a game? We urge you not to go to Google. You're not going to get flogged if you're wrong. We are interested in finding out what you're thinking. And if you're wrong, that's fine. Let us know. There's 4 of them. See if you can get all of them, or maybe combining all of our listeners or watchers. Maybe they can all combine. But go ahead. There's 2 ways to let us know. Put it in one of the comments below or call us at 772-800-2899, and we'll get you right on, and we'll talk about it. So that's the trivia question for tonight. And Brad, let's talk about running backs.
Yeah, running backs in this division are interesting as well, right? A little bit, maybe not as exciting as other leagues, but
there's nobody blowing my socks off, right? There's nobody in your top 5, right?
Right. No, I understand that, but there's a couple interesting guys. Some that I think are maybe valued too low, maybe some that are valued too high. Obviously we start with Drake here. Drake kind of blew up at the end of last year, the last half of last year after he got traded from the Dolphins and came in and took over for Johnson, and probably should have even had a better end of the year, except they were still kind of splitting time.
Right.
For a few of the games there. So,
and now he doesn't have to worry about that.
No, he's on his own now. Of course, they bring in Hopkins, so that takes away a few balls a game. They're going to be feeding him the ball, you would imagine. But Drake is going to be the guy. And I like him. I mean,
let's play the game. You ready to play the game?
I'm ready to play the game. We're going to play this game later too, but we could play now.
You got the 6th pick in the draft. You taking Kenyon there?
Crap. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. If I am taking a running back there, like if Michael Thomas is there at 6, excuse me.
That's fair.
You got to think about it, right? If Thomas and Drake are there, it depends how I'm trying to formulate my draft in a redraft league, right?
Let me hold on. We're playing the game, right? So you're telling me that you might, I know you're not committed here, or you should be committed, but you're not committed to the fact that you would take Drake, but you're going to take Drake over Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry or Joe Mixon or Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Maybe.
Because if you have that 6th pick, one of those guys is going to be available.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And with all those guys you just named, I might. You look at Drake, he had over 800 yards, he had 8 touchdowns, he had 50 catches. And that's not a whole season. So you look at numbers like that, and that kind of excites you because if you expedite that through the whole season, that makes it really interesting.
All right, so we're going to bring in 2020.
There he is.
2020 is on board now. Now let me catch you up, 2020. This is what Cyclops just said. All right, he just said he has a 6th pick in the draft that he might consider drafting Kenyon Drake over the likes of Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Is he crazy, or do you think there's some?
I didn't hear Derrick Henry. I didn't hear Derrick Henry. That would be a question mark between those two. But the rest of them, yes.
I don't know what's crazier, my computer that just stopped me from getting into the show, or that comment. So I'm going to be thankful that we're in a league together, and if that's your running back strategy, I'm going to tell you that's a fantastic move. But
all I can do right now is pray that I don't get the 6th pick.
And listen, I love Kenyon Drake as well. I really do. If you look at what his numbers would have been over a 16-game season in the stretch that he did before he got hurt, and Kyler Murray adds DeAndre Hopkins there. They're going to air it out. They got 3 great receivers, no tight ends to really throw it to. But that's crazy talk over Cook and Derrick Henry. Tolfair, listen, I know they got Damian Williams there, who that's a who knows thing, and Reed does love to feature a back. That I might say I would probably take Drake over Tolfair, just because that's a question mark. But everyone else in that category.
Over who? I didn't hear what you said.
Tolfair.
Okay, Helaire. Okay.
Tolfair, excuse me. Tolfair.
So what you guys are forgetting about is that the Cardinals drafted Eno Benjamin in the 7th. No, I'm just kidding. They did. That's the point is they don't have anybody else. Kenyon Drake is going to get the rock. We know he's going to get the rock. I would not be surprised at all if Kenyon Drake finishes as RB number 4 in the league this coming year. Okay. I will not be surprised. That being said, I'm not going to pick him as RB4. I still have him after all those guys that I named.
RB8.
Have him after Mixon and Henry and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Kamara. After Dalvin Cook, maybe. So to me, I mean, he's going to be a great running back, and in a PPR league, and we'll keep that in mind, guys. We're talking PPR, right?
That's true.
He could be a running back 4, but I am not drafting him as a running back 4.
Right.
Okay. So we went through Drake, right? The next running back in this division, as we're talking about the NFC West, I mean, you have Carson, Mostert, and Akers, basically, right? Akers, of course, the rookie coming into, and you have Henderson and Brown there. And then, of course, you have Carlos Hyde and you have Penny in Seattle. But I think, to me, Carson is the guy there.
That's a clear
of course.
Yeah. So who do you, Seth or Kamish or 2020, put after Drake in that division, the next running back up?
After Drake, I mean, to me, it's very clear that it's Chris Carson because, as long as he holds on to the football, that's always been his issue, puts the ball on the ground a lot, and Penny gets hurt. I think Chris Carson is the clear second running back of that division. You've got a trio committee in San Francisco. I love Mostert. The problem is you got Tevin Coleman, who's got that connection with Kyle Shanahan out of Atlanta. They still spent a lot to get Jerick McKinnon, who's been injured. So you got a three-headed monster there. And then you have Cam Akers, who's going to get poached with Darrell Henderson. And that line still isn't fantastic. So to me, it's no question. It's got to be Chris Carson, number 2.
I think it's Chris Carson. Also, I'm not as high on him as you are. 2020. I know that last week when we were talking about Carson, you had him pretty high compared to where I have him. I actually would not take him as an RB1. In order for me to get Carson, I would have to have one of the other top 10 running backs before I get to Carson. I have Carson actually as a running back 17.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying he's not good. I'm not saying he's not going to score touchdowns. He does fumble a lot.
Right.
But I also know that whether it's Carson, Mostert, Akers, we're talking about running back by committees on all of these teams. And even though right now Penny's hurt, he's going to be coming back. They got Carlos Hyde, who is still a very good running back.
Good running back.
Right. And you know that they're going to pull Carson out for several series, and who knows what's going to happen. So, yes, I think Carson after Drake is the best running back in that division, but I'm not touching him until the 3rd or 4th round, and that's if I have already a very good running back.
I would agree with that. And I had Carson last year, and again, he had over 1,200 yards last year.
Right.
But it was a similar situation that we were talking about. I forget who it was the other day. It felt like he should have had 1,700 yards, and he had 7 touchdowns, but it felt like he should have had 13 or 14. And that was frustrating.
Well, Pete Carroll was one of those coaches that if you put the ball on the ground, he's going to sit you. He's going to sit you. And Penny is a very ably bodied backup, but he has injury issues.
When he's not
Exactly.
So we've had, let me just cut you off real quick. We've had a lot of people guessing on the trivia question, which was who are the only 4 players who have reached 300 receiving yards in a game in the Super Bowl era? And we've had quite a few responses. Right now, there's only one right answer out of the 4, and that's Julio Jones. He absolutely did get over. He had exactly 300 yards against Carolina in 2016. He then said, old Rams receiver, but I forgot his name. And then Robert Sponder had responded with Isaac Bruce. That's not correct. So Jonah is correct that it is an old Rams receiver. It's just a matter of which one. And then there are 2 others after that. It is not Timmy Smith, Andre Reed, John Taylor, or Jerry Rice.
Anquan Bolden wasn't one of them?
No, sir.
So was it Torrey Holt?
It was not Torrey Holt.
Not Torrey.
Torrey Holt.
He lives down the street from me.
One of my favorite football names.
Flipper Anderson.
Flipper Anderson is correct.
Aubrey Beavers.
I love Chubb.
Brian Cox.
No.
I mean, he's not a receiver. I just, I know you like that name.
So Flipper Anderson, yes, and Julio Jones. For those who care, Flipper Anderson, he did it against New Orleans in 1989. He had 336 yards, which was the record, or is the record to this point. Nobody's done better. So there are 2 more. One I've heard of, one I've never heard of. So we'll go from there. Okay, so back to running backs. I guess that leaves us with Cam Akers. Mostert, right? And then Akers.
Yeah, I mean, look, Mostert, he obviously came on into playoffs last year, had an incredible little run. It's just, again, you have, like 2020 was saying, you have McKinnon. You have McKinnon there, and Tevin Coleman. You just never know what you're going to get. And Mostert seems to have the leg up just because of how he ended the year, but you just don't know. So he's kind of and you don't have the preseason again to see it.
Right.
But you do know they are going to be a running team. For the most part, I would imagine. And, I don't know. I just stay away from him right now.
I don't know. Look, they made a point of getting rid of Matt Breida, trading him to Miami on draft night. Even though Mostert had threatened to hold out, they just re-signed him. So they realize his value. And I'll tell you guys this is something you may not know, but in the 8 weeks, remember, he took over for Breida and Coleman after the first 8 weeks. The 8 weeks he took over, only Christian McCaffrey did better per game from a fantasy standpoint of any other running back in fantasy football.
He averaged 5.6 yards a carry.
Yeah. So
that's actually pretty amazing.
But again, and I agree with you. If that was his backfield, I love this kid. He's a versatile back. He's going to catch the ball. He can run block. He can do it all. But when he was doing that, that was a banged up backfield. He was the only guy. So, I mean, and we're all saying the same thing. If this was his backfield, but Shanahan loves Coleman. He loved him in Atlanta. They have a lot invested in Jerick McKinnon. So my thoughts on this is no one's going to run away with this. I think Mostert is going to get the bulk. But what does that mean? 10, 12, 15 touches? It's going to be split out. These are guys that when somebody gets injured, you're going to really see the cream rise to the top. And that's when you're going to get the value of one of these three.
Hey, for me, value, his ADP right now around the 7th round, I'm grabbing him.
Beautiful. Love it there. Love it there.
Not a choice.
I love it at the 7th.
Not grabbing him earlier, and he may end up being in the top 15, but I'm not grabbing him at that point. But
7th round,
I think that's fair. If some good wide receivers come my way, tight ends come my way, and I pass a little bit on the running back, I have no problem with Mostert in a flex. Right. I have no problem with Mostert in an RB3, possibly even an RB2, but I got to have another flex ready to go.
Right.
And then Cam Akers, guys, are we drafting him this year? Are we concerned about running back by committee? We know that Cam Akers is the early favorite right now to get the starting position. But are there too many mouths to feed?
I'm very nervous in that backfield, especially drafting a rookie. And it could be one of these things that, just surprises you. But you got to know where to draft them. If you're taking a third running back, very deep leagues, things like that, try to get him on your roster. But don't make him your second running back or your flex player if you can help it. If you're in a 10 or 12 team league, I think you're going to take him deeper. If you're in a 16 team league, he may end up drafting him as your second running back. But again, it's based on your league, but don't get too high on him. And
we still have COVID issues, right? We still don't know if he's going to learn the playbook. Let's not spend too much time on Cam Akers. Or Tevin Coleman. I actually have Tevin Coleman as a do not draft. I think he's a stream player depending on what happens with Mostert. So I don't even think he's worth talking about. I think what's worth talking about are the wide receivers, talking about the impact that DeAndre Hopkins is going to have on the NFC West now.
Right.
Where are you drafting him, Brad?
I have Hopkins in like the top 3 or 4 wide receivers.
Really?
I have him high. And again, it's going to be one of these things. It's probably, I don't know that I'm taking, what's that?
I said you might be high, but go
ahead. It's kind of one of these things for me personally. It's where he falls in a draft. How is my draft looking? I'm not necessarily going in saying, okay, I need to get Hopkins at, I'm the number 9 pick. I'm going to take a running back there, see what's there at, coming around at 12. But if he's there at the right time, the right value, he could be, I don't see him there after later in the second rounds or early third round. But if I have the number 22 pick and he's there, absolutely. I'm jumping all over that.
Number 22 pick. So you're saying in the third round.
That's the third. Right. Yeah, that's the third round already, but early in the third round.
So I don't want to call you out here, man, but if you're saying that he's the third wide receiver, and
did I say that? I thought I said third or fourth.
He said third or fourth. Yeah,
even third or fourth. Are you suggesting that you're not going to have? I mean, we had lightning round the other night about whether or not there's going to have over three receivers taken in the first round.
Right.
So you're suggesting that in the first two rounds, you're not going to have 4 or 5 receivers taken at that point?
No, you probably will. So
you're not going to get him at. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I understand where you place him, but what you're also saying is you're not going to overdraft him, regardless of where you might have.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Right. I'm not gonna. Yes.
Okay.
If he's there at 11, but he's the third wide receiver there, I'm probably not going to take him.
All right. I've got 5 words. One of them is kind of like an extra word, but Kyler Murray isn't Deshaun Watson.
Exactly.
Okay.
And just to add, I'm sorry, Commissioner, Hopkins had nobody to fight for balls with in Houston. And I agree. Murray is definitely not Watson. The other mouths to feed there were always injured Will Fuller and Kiki Kuti, and yet Kenny Stills, which is a nice compliment. He goes to the air raid offense. Kingsbury's offense is a great offense. They are going to air it out. By the way, just to mention, Murray did start slumping at the end of the season. He kind of hit that rookie wall early. I don't know that that's going to be a problem. You've got that sophomore slump that all quarterbacks go into. It's a new offense, though, but he never had to compete with balls like he's going to have to with one of the greatest receivers of all time, and Fitz, as well as Christian Kirk. And it's a new offense. I like him. I don't like him as the third.
I'm sorry, but I don't think. I mean, Fitzgerald's Hall of Fame wide receiver. He's also like 45.
So caught 75 balls last year, 108 targets.
I understand that, but I don't think he's there when they bring Hopkins in. Fitzgerald's there as a possession receiver, and yeah, he's going to catch balls, but I don't think he's fighting him for targets.
He's wide receiver 1, but I don't think it's going to be the DeAndre Hopkins, the prolific in 7 years. He's only had 2 sub 1,000 seasons. One of them was because Brock Osweiler was throwing the ball. I just don't see him the same DeAndre.
He's going to lead. We know he's going to lead the Cardinals in receptions. No one's arguing that. Okay. My concern is, I said before I was rudely cut off, when I said that Kyler Murray isn't Deshaun Watson, my point is that last year with Deshaun Watson, who is as far as I'm concerned, he's a better quarterback than Kyler Murray. DeAndre Hopkins, who I had on my team, who I drafted in the first round last year, was only ended up as wide receiver number 6. He only had 7 touchdowns with Deshaun Watson, with an upgraded offensive line. I'm not saying he's not going to be good, but I'm with Brad, not in that he's the wide receiver 3 or 4. I actually have him as a wide receiver 5 or 6, but I'm not touching him until late second round, possibly third round. I mean, I'm probably getting running backs the first 2 rounds. I don't know where I'm picking, but I'm not going to touch DeAndre Hopkins early this year.
I'm sorry. I didn't know. I interrupted you twice in the same sentence. I agree. I think he's going to be overdrafted. I think based on his ADP. Again, we're all saying the same thing. DeAndre is DeAndre. He's one of the most talented receivers. He puts up phenomenal numbers because of his connection with Deshaun. It's going to be a wide receiver 1, but I think he's going to be drafted out of position based on where he's actually going to end up in this offense.
Okay, so we talked about possibly somebody who's a little overvalued in DeAndre Hopkins, and I kind of want to get into 2 guys that I think are going to be undervalued. 2 guys that I think right now their ADP is pretty low, and I'm drafting them higher without even blinking an eye, and that's Robert Woods and DK Metcalf. And I know last year, Keith, you had Robert Woods, and he did great for you at the beginning of the season. I think now it's a little bit of a different offense. I don't know. You guys probably have Tyler Lockett ahead of Robert Woods and DK Metcalf. I do not.
So I agree with you. I love Robert Woods. What he did last year was phenomenal. And you have Brandon Cooks, who, by the way, disappeared towards the middle of the end of last year. It was like an AWOL. And Woods just was phenomenal. And Cooper Kupp is great. And now Sean McVay figured it out with the 2 tight end set to give Goff that protection that he needed.
Right.
I'm going to disagree with you, though, on the DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. My only thought is that I love Metcalf. He's a huge talent, but they're going to be facing some significant secondaries in that division. And DK is going to be more of that prolific wide receiver 1 role that's going to get a lot of demand, that major corner where Lockett's going to come out of the slot. And the chemistry between Wilson and Lockett is one of the most significant chemistries in the league. I think Lockett's going to actually outperform Metcalf, even though I think Metcalf might be a little more talented just based on that offense and the fact that they're going to absolutely air it out. But I love Woods. I love all 3 of them.
So I have Woods and Lockett and Kupp all in like this 7-player range as far as wide receivers. My question in this trio here, Kupp had 4 more catches. So Kupp and Woods had basically the same amount of catches last year, very close on yards. But Kupp had 10 touchdowns and Woods had 2 touchdowns.
2. Yeah.
2. That's a huge, significant number there.
Yeah. And no Brandon Cooks, no Todd Gurley. Those passes have to go somewhere. Those touchdowns have to go somewhere.
Do they go to Woods?
And keep in mind, yes. And well, either Woods or Higbee, but keep in mind that from weeks 9 through 17, Cooper Kupp disappeared.
Yeah. He had a huge beginning of the season.
Gone.
Right?
Yeah.
So, forget, in this discussion, and we'll get to Cooper Kupp later, but with Robert Woods, he's a given to have 85 catches, 1,100 yards, at least 5 touchdowns, and probably has more upside than that. Mm-hmm. And I think he's going to be completely undervalued because people don't think about Robert Woods as a receiver or as a top receiver.
Right.
I don't have a problem with Robert Woods as my wide receiver number 2, a high number 2. Mm-hmm. Depending on how the draft falls. DK Metcalf, look, and I'm also talking about a guy who had Tyler Lockett last year and how frustrating it was. I know he got hurt in week 10. He was never really the same after that. Right. He was great the first 9 weeks of the season. Right. And then he got hurt, and then he kind of disappeared. But I'm not saying they're not going to be bad, but now we're talking 6th round. And I agree, Brad, these guys are all around the same spot. 6th round, right. 7th round. I have no problem with Woods, Metcalf in the 6th round. I'm going to take them all day.
I think those guys are very good values there. You're going
to get a top 10 receiver because I believe Lockett is in that top, maybe just outside top 10, but right there in the 6th round when you're getting 3 receivers gone in the first 2 rounds. If that's where he's going, and that's basically looking at, I think, like we just talked about, overvalue on DeAndre, incredible undervalue on Woods and Lockett in those areas. And yes, Kupp as well, because he does get those touchdowns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Do we need to talk about any San Francisco receivers here?
No,
you got to
say we skip them.
Yeah, I don't have a problem grabbing Brandon Ayuk late. I'd rather take him than a backup tight end, for example, just so we could see what he can do. We know Garoppolo is going to throw it to somebody.
He's got to throw it to somebody.
Right. But I'm not counting on him. He's going to be one of these guys that if he's on your roster, you either stream him or you might end up with the one guy that's going to get you to the Super Bowl. Right. Same thing with Deebo Samuel. If I take him, I got to see if he's going to get healthy. And if I do take him, it will be late. And for the first time in all the years, the 17 years that I've been in fantasy football that he's been playing, I've got a do not draft on Larry Fitzgerald. And that's the first time that I've ever said that. And it's sad.
I think people had that on him for the past couple of years, and yet he still puts up, a good fill-in number for fantasy.
75 yards, 75 grabs.
Yeah. He's a streamer. He's a fill-in. Yeah. And he's still, if you need somebody for a week, pick him up.
Remember, he had 75 grabs because he had 109 targets. Yeah. He's not getting 109 targets this year. It's a different offense. But all right. So let's move on to tight ends. Obviously, Kittle's the class of the tight ends in this division. The question,
can I ask you a question about Kittle?
Yeah.
With them having nobody literally to throw the ball to, does this make Kittle above Kelsey as the number one tight end in football? He might have been anyway, but does this just push it over the fence? He's the clear number one now.
I don't know. We talked about that a little bit last week. I don't really know. I still think Kittle needs another year to prove. Kelsey's been doing it consistently. Now, look, both of them didn't have a lot of touchdowns last year, right? And you got to ask which one's going to get more touchdowns, or who has the potential of getting more touchdowns this year. And I agree with you, Keith. I think Kittle is the one out of the two between Kelsey and Kittle who has more potential of getting those touchdowns. But to be honest with you, I'm not drafting either one of them where they're being drafted.
Yeah.
I've made the mistake in the past. I've tried. I've been enamored by tight ends, and then I grab them early, and then I just pay for it all year long. So no, I don't know about Kelsey or Kittle. I think they're pretty close, and I would not give anybody a hard time if they picked one or the other over the other. In the third round, which is where they're right now.
Right. You can justify these, those two in a lot of different ways. 1, 2, 1, back and forth. You can fight with yourself all day. Again, it's going to be like one of those field picks. Who do you like? But I think both of those guys are gone by the third round, the latest. I think both of those guys may be gone in the second round in a lot of drafts. And like you say, people are jumping up to get a couple of guys like that because they are the class of the tight ends. Mm-hmm. But I remember, you go back to Gronkowski in those years, when he was putting up all these numbers. Of course, he always got hurt too. Or Jimmy Graham, or like certain tight ends. I've never seen the value in getting a tight end that early.
And I would agree with you.
I think that we'll talk about that on an upcoming show as we get closer to the season, but I think it's a very good question. I know there are people out there when Gronk was at his when he was doing the best that he's ever done, people were grabbing him in the first round. But it's a good question. And the way it is with Kittle and Kelsey, at this point, they're safe, right? Wherever you take them, you're going to get production out of them, which you can't say for a Darren Waller, even though you hope he will. But he's not going to be as safe as Kittle or Kelsey. But I'm not picking those guys. Why? Because I'm waiting for Tyler Higbee. I'm the idiot who's going to grab Tyler Higbee early because he, to me, is severely undervalued.
Yes.
And I saw a stat which blew me away, and that is the last 5 weeks of 2019. Higbee had the best tight end receiving stats of any tight end in the history of the NFL. Right? That's more than Gronk. That's more than Kelsey, more than Kittle, more than Antonio Gates or Tony Gonzalez. He had the best 5 weeks a tight end ever had in the history of the NFL, and those were the last 5 weeks when they finally determined what they were going to do. And during those 5 weeks, he played nearly every snap, just like Robert Woods, guys, every snap. So there's going to be an opportunity. Gerald Everett, he's going to be returning. That's what made Higbee so great was because Everett went out, right?
Right.
He's returning now. So it might be a little more challenge than last year. But if Higbee's there in the 10th round, you just put my name on him.
But Goff's major success, because McVay is such a talent, he's so intelligent, was because that offensive line was so bad. They found their stride. They found their rhythm. By the way, that's when Robert Woods started really exploding as well, when they were in those two tight end sets. So they're going to be on the field together a lot.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, when you find a player like that can make an impact like that, you're going to find a way to get him on the field and involved in plays. Doesn't mean he's going to have as much, but yes, you're going to see him on the field a lot. And I do like him as a tight end, but tight ends after the top, 3 or 4 or so, it's almost like put them in a bowl and pick one out and see how it goes sometimes.
I actually have Higbee as tight end number 5, which is a lot higher than what his ADP is right now. A lot of people have him below Waller and below Ingram. Even some have him below Hunter Henry. As far as I'm concerned, after Kelsey and Kittle and Ertz and Mark Andrews, that's where Higbee falls in as far as I'm concerned until he proves me differently.
Right.
That's
okay. Fair enough.
That's just the way I'm like. Now, the bigger question is, who's going to get more catches, Dan Arnold or Sprinkle?
What's the under over?
Yeah,
I know, right? So if you
16.
didn't understand what I'm saying, don't draft Sprinkle, don't draft Dan Arnold, don't even draft Greg Olsen or Will Dissly until you know which one of the two are going to do anything. Greg Olsen, love the guy, but he's not the Greg Olsen from old, or he is old. So as far as I'm concerned, those are do not drafts. Maybe as a backup flyer if you want on Dissly. But that's it. Oh, and by the way, Robert Sponder is correct. He guessed, although he said Megaton, I think he meant Megatron. And yes, Calvin Johnson is the third out of the 4 players who've reached over 300 receiving yards in a game. Calvin Johnson did it in 2013 against Dallas. He had 329 yards. He was 7 yards away from Flipper Anderson's record. I remember actually watching that game. We were all, rooting for him to get those 7 yards. It would have been really cool. The last guy is a guy nobody's ever heard of, which is, well, I'm not going to say nobody, but for somebody who got 309 yards against San Diego, even though it was 1985, Stephon Page, guys.
Oh, Kansas City, right?
Kansas City, Stephon Page. 309 yards against San Diego in 1985. I haven't looked it up, and I'm curious what Page did that whole year. He probably ended up with 500 yards total for the year. But
that even predates me starting to play fantasy football by just a couple years.
So that's the answers to the trivia questions. Thank you, Jonah and Robbie, for playing tonight. Really do appreciate it.
So we're going to do a quick lightning round. All right.
This will end the show, right?
Yeah. Well, after this, we'll wrap it up and get ready for Thursday. So this will be a quick lightning round. I'm going to give a round. I'm going to give 2 players and your first thought as far as player A, player B. Okay. So we'll go through it. I have about 6 or 7, maybe 8 here, and it'll be quick. All right. And if anybody wants to throw a comment in while you're listening, we'll throw that in as well. So the first one, second round, Hilaire or Eckler? Either. That's not how you play this.
I'm going
Hilaire. Edward Hilaire. I'll take him over Eckler.
I'm like, you stumped me. All right. Third round, David Johnson, Cortland Sutton.
David Johnson. He's
all right, quicker. All right. Fourth round, Le'Veon Bell, or Calvin Ridley?
Ridley. I'm not touching a jet if you paid me.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second. All right, two away here. Fifth round, Devontae Parker, James Conner. Oh, the commission's thinking here.
Fifth round.
Fifth round.
If fifth round and Connor's still there, I'm grabbing Connor.
Okay. Any round.
I'll be there.
All right, okay, that's fine. Any round. Any Jets player or herpes.
Herpes 1 or 2.
I could have made it COVID. I didn't make it COVID.
I'm going to have to go with herpes next.
Okay. Sixth round. Michael Gallup, Montgomery.
Michael Gallup.
Okay, so we have a little split decision there. Fifth, we were just talking about him. Let's say fifth round, sixth round. Tyler Lockett, Zach Ertz.
Fifth
I
or
know
sixth
he's
round?
going to say Lockett. I'm going to say Ertz in fifth round.
And that fifth round Ertz.
Okay, and let's say sixth, seventh round, Swift or Akers, both rookies.
I like DeAndre Swift this year.
Right.
I think he's going to end up being one of the class of the rookie running backs. I know it's lightning round. I'm not supposed to talk a lot about it, but I will tell you that I am most excited. Obviously, Edwards-Helaire, I'm the most excited about just because he has the opportunity. But I'm very curious to see what Jonathan Taylor can do with the Chargers.
Yep. I like Swift as well this year. I think he's got a lot of potential there, and that might be a very good offense for him. That's all I had for the lightning round. I think our number one answer for the lightning round was herpes over any Jets player, for sure.
I said Chargers. Isn't he's with the Colts?
Who?
Jonathan Taylor. I'm sorry, I said Chargers.
Oh, Taylor. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
the question is Marlon Mack or Jonathan Taylor.
Got ya.
That'll be an interesting. In fact, we have to talk about that division. Are we going to do that on Thursday?
So that's our last division to talk about. We're going to talk about that on Thursday, and then next week we'll start getting into players and their positioning and rounds they should go in and all the things that we've been discussing. But we're going to put it all and group it all together as we get closer to football season. We hope.
Yeah.
There's also all this discussion about players on COVID lists and if they had any kind of contact, and there's some players starting to be signed and players continuing to hold out. How is it that New England, by almost triple, has more players that are opting out?
Because they know they're abandoning ship because they know that this is not going to be a good year. They know that they could put their contract on hold and
get
see
their
next year,
couple $100,000, and
this is mad scientist at work.
It's great. Cam Newton must be going crazy with all that.
He's getting a paycheck. I don't think
that's true. That's true. So anyway,
my concern is I'm starting to that number used to be 75% sure they're going to play. Then it went to 50%. It's starting to get creep a little under 50% now, only because of the number of players and coaches that are getting COVID. Seeing what's going on in Major League Baseball, I would not at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if they called off the season. There's no way that they could be in a bubble the way that basketball is. And by the way, the refs stole the game from the Heat today.
I saw that.
But I did not see that.
I think it's very possible that we don't have a season, and I guess we'll stay tuned. I hope not. Maybe I'm just being pessimistic.
It'll be interesting over the next few weeks what we see happening, because I saw that New Orleans was getting a hotel to try to create their own bubble is something I was reading today. Players, if players,
when you're tackling a guy who has COVID and he's sweating and bleeding all over.
I certainly understand that, but I think that they are going to do anything they can to make a season happen. We're just going to have to see, and hope. Again, put off your draft as long as you can to see. They extended the date to opt out, right? It was the 3rd. It was today. And then did they extend it? I heard.
I don't know.
You haven't read that? Maybe the 3rd was the extension. I forget exactly what it was, but at some point that has to stop, and then they kind of know what they're working with, and then it'll be easier to start doing your drafts and getting things going.
All right.
So anyway, go ahead, Seth.
Thursday night, right? Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football.
That's
Thursday
right.
Night football.
We're filling in. We're filling in the meantime.
Hey, look, and if there's no season, it gets canceled. We're going to come live. Fantasy curling every Tuesday and Thursday night. The top picks, the best curlers going.
That's right. And it'll be right here on the Fantasy Football or Fantasy Curler Buzz podcast. Never needs to be done, but we're here. We're your resource. We look forward to talking to you all Thursday night at 8:00. Anybody else? Any last words before we end?
Just have a good couple days. Stay safe. Wear a mask.
I love Chubb.
All right.
Take
care, guys.
Bye.